Welcome to the Firebelly Social Show. We're focused on talking to food and beverage brands that are on a mission to make the world better.
Hey, everyone. Duncan here with another episode of the Firebelly Social Show, where I chat with founders and leaders of mission-driven food and beverage companies. And they're just such an interesting group of people. I love connecting with them. I love digging deeper, and it's just so much fun for me. Thank you all for tuning in. We've got a great show lined up for you today with Sam Rose, founder of RoseBud Ice Cream. This episode is brought to you by a whole bunch of people. Firebelly Marketing. At Firebelly, we help mission-based food and beverage brands bring people closer together through social media. I'm going to throw a shout out here to Elite Commerce Group and Eric Martindale, Peter G, and Pod Foods. So thank you to everyone. And let's get into it. I'm excited to have Sam today. Sam, listen, I found out so many things about Sam. He is a 2019 Golden Gloves champion. So he's a boxer. He still boxes. Bassist for a rock band, the Pigeon Boys, and most importantly to me, founder of RoseBud Ice Cream. The man is definitely dedicated to making life sweeter. He's launched RoseBud to create America's best ice cream and bring joy to people's lives. And who doesn't associate joy with ice cream? Today, RoseBud is available in over 300 points of distribution and rapidly growing. Sam, my man, welcome to the show.
Thank you for having me.
I'm so excited. Let's start with the boxing.
Sure.
Tell us a story from boxing to ice cream.
Yeah, growing up, I started boxing when I was like 15 years old. It was a good thing to keep me out of trouble. And I just always actually wanted to start the sport when I was 8. I watched Rocky and I was like, I want to do that. And my parents were like, absolutely not. We can't have you being hit in the head. So it took a while to convince them. And then, yeah, I started when I was in high school. Got to a point where I was actually coaching a team out in Denver for a while. And then, yeah, these days I'm not competing or doing anything crazy like that. I just don't have that time for that anymore. But, when you're training hard, you want to reward yourself with something good. And ice cream was always my go-to cheat meal if I wasn't trying to make weight or anything like that. So, and even if you are making weight, you can still allow a little ice cream. I won't tell anyone.
I mean, one of our team members at Firebelly, Abby Thomas, got engaged on the steps in Philly where Rocky used to run up and down. So,
oh, nice.
I mean, we're rooting for you. And as I'm going to promise you that Firebelly people are going to sing the Rocky theme song every time you hit a milestone.
Sure. Yeah. Maybe I'll play Eye of the Tiger before my next sales meeting.
She said that people, when her fiance got down on his knee to ask her, she said people were yelling Adrian. What are you gonna do?
That sounds about right.
And you've got such a cool mission. You want to make people's lives better by bringing them the best ice cream. I mean, tell me about this mission. How did you come up with it? How's it going? What do you think about it?
Sure. Yeah, I think ice cream has always had a pretty special place in my heart growing up. Like, I always tell the anecdote that I was on a basketball team that we had a defeated season, not undefeated. We were defeated. We went a whole season my 5th grade year without winning a game. And like we had a draw. Like, I don't know how we had a draw in basketball, but we had one game that we didn't lose. And this kid immediately shouted like, let's get ice cream. And like, that's kind of like what I associate with ice cream. It's like bad day, ice cream can make it a little better. Celebrating, ice cream can make it a little better. So knowing that you can get kind of all of your kicks from just a good treat, that's where I was really inspired. And frankly, with what was available when I was a senior in college, by that time, it was just kind of a lot of junk almost. And I won't name any companies specifically, but there's just brands out there who are pushing frozen dairy dessert. That's like what it's legally classified as. That's why they don't call it ice cream on their container. And I just thought that that was kind of bullshit. And I wanted to make something that was actually good and kind of harken back to the feelings I had when I was a kid and would get ice cream and it could put a big smile on my face. So the other thing too, with improving people's lives, the mission statement is pretty broad intentionally. The thought being that as this company grows, we can develop a platform The more people that know Rosebud, pay attention to what we're doing, we can use that as a vehicle to do good as well. So we're not out fixing the world selling ice cream, but we're hopefully helping some people have better days. And when we're not, using ice cream to accomplish that mission, we do an annual blood drive in Denver, that's seen really good turnouts when we've done that. We actually had our first, I guess, first annual isn't a term. So we had our inaugural sock drive for Denver's homeless population last March, and something we'd like to do again this year. So just ways to where it's like, hey, we have all these people paying attention to us on social media. Let's use that as a tool to do some good.
I mean, it's interesting. I was going to ask you the meaning of why you decided to name the company Rosebud.
Yeah, so originally I like the full version is in college. I had an idea to start a dispensary in Oregon. I spent like 2 years working on a business plan, and like in a fever dream, the name Rosebud came to me because my last name is Rose. But eventually, when it came time to start the ice cream company, because I was working on recipes and just like kind of messing around with that, my friend was like, you might as well just go like and start a brand if you're going to be this passionate about this thing. And so I just kind of was like, okay, well, my buddy suggested that I start the company. We'll just go with Rosebud being that for, the ice cream, how it got its kicks.
Well, so I love that. And it also, to me, it says like the beginning of something beautiful, right? And so it's a rosebud, it connects to your name. But there's a iconic American film, Citizen Kane, and
Yeah.
the rosebud refers to the last time that he was truly happy, and I had to take that in a film class. But I was telling someone about it and that I was interviewing you, and they were like, "Oh my God, it's inspired by Citizen Kane."
Um,
Hey,
I like
we'll take it, right?
that. I'll take whatever meaning people assign to it, as long as it's good, I'm cool with that. As long as they know how to spell the brand name when they look it up. But I like the beginning of something beautiful. I'm going to steal that from you. Thank you.
You're welcome. You're welcome. It is the beginning of something beautiful. And you have really, when we were doing our kind of prep call or our last call, you were really particular about flavors. And
Yeah,
I want to say that not only do the flavors sound amazing, they have really cool names. Like, let's talk about that.
sure. So I mean, as part of like the my ice cream origin story, if you will, I didn't attend culinary school, and I think the theme, if there's been one in my life, is that like I'm not very like talented naturally. Like I can't think of anything I picked up and have been like, oh, this makes sense. It'll click. So with like that being kind of the enduring theme, the other side of that is that any accomplishment has been just being like stubbornly persistent. So with boxing, like I trained my ass off for years. That's how I won that tournament. With playing bass, like I can't read music. I don't know, how to do it, but I can kind of figure out what sounds cool and play that with, a band. And even in that capacity, it wasn't like, oh, let's just play some shows. It was like, let's go try to play the House of Blues. And that's, setting goals and trying to keep them high or unrealistic. With ice cream, I knew what tasted good. I had not any clue of how to make it taste good. So I spent a very long time developing recipes. And I think from about 2016 to 2019, I can't even tell you how many ice cream batches I made at home. But my first job out of college was actually in a professional ice cream kitchen so that I could take some of that, what I was learning in there, and apply it to my at-home recipes. But with the flavors, it's, a lot of people can make vanilla ice cream. Vanilla is the number one seller at pretty much every store. So it's not about just like doing something that's okay, because okay can get you in places, but it's not going to get you off the shelf because people don't want okay ice cream. They want the best. And knowing that, again, it's just like, if I'm going to do this thing, I got to be the best at it. And that's, again, just the theme of how I go into all my endeavors. But with ice cream, yeah, a lot of trial and error. Usually would test it out dozens and dozens and dozens of times before I start sharing it with people. Back in the day, my friends liked that I would have like little ice cream socials and give out, surveys and take feedback on those things. And that's how it came to be. And I feel like with ice cream, there's an element of fun that you should be having with it because ultimately we're selling ice cream. I'm not like, I don't know, I'm not saving the world selling like medical solutions or something like that. So when it comes to the names, I just think it's fun to be playful. I have seen it kind of, there's an argument to be made that people can get confused easily. So trying to be not too abstract and make it so that they can actually have an idea of what's in the pint is a fine balance. But it's a fun exercise coming up with the name.
I mean, I'm just going to give our audience a couple of them. Strawberry Tasty, which is the strawberry flavor. And Sam, you spent, months and months on that one, years on that one. And the fancy ass vanilla, those are the ones chocolata cookies, really, really fun. And I feel memorable names. And let me ask you this. I've heard and read that a lot of ice cream mainstream brands they pump air into it. It's not as dense as you think it is. It actually has air pumped into it. Like,
Yeah,
have you had
that's just
any experience with that?
yeah. I mean, having air pumped into ice cream is kind of the basis of how it's created. So it's the air that actually makes ice cream ice cream. If you were to just take a cream, sugar, add your flavors, okay, stir it up and throw it in the freezer, then it would be just a block of ice. So without getting too technical, because frankly I can't, but as you make your base, you put it into this machine. So like an at-home machine is just like this really cold cylinder that spins, and then there's like a thing in there that mixes air into it. So while the liquid cream becomes frozen, air is being spun into it. And that's what gives it the fluffy ice cream texture rather than it just being like a brick of ice. So what a lot of brands do, and like some of the larger players will do is they'll pump like a lot of air into it so that it's really fluffy and they can kind of turn the liquid base into more product. But at a certain point, it stops being ice cream when you do that. And that's kind of like with soft serve versus a hard ice cream. One of the main differences there is that like in a soft serve machine, it's having that air spun into it and then it comes out and it's fluffier versus with a hard ice cream, you're just putting less air into it when you're creating the mix.
Got it. And let me ask you. Thank you for explaining that. Um, you have been working on distribution. What are some of the challenges with ice cream, getting your ice cream distributed?
Yeah, we talk about this a lot, and my business partner and I always joke like if we had known how complicated ice cream was, we probably would have tried to sell something else. But uh, the thing is, like anytime you're moving something from point A to point B, there's a cost associated. If it's ambient or room temperature, it's a little bit easier to sell, like or to move. There's a lot less that can go wrong. Like a bottle of hot sauce isn't going to melt, really. But when it becomes refrigerated, now you're dealing with temperature that you have to keep controlled because can't it can melt. And frozen, specifically ice cream, is very fickle. It has to be transported at a very low temperature because when it comes to like the freezer burn effect, if something's been sitting on the shelf for too long, part of that can happen in transit as well. So when it comes to the actual distribution piece, there are a lot less carriers or people who are moving frozen products and even fewer who are moving ice cream specifically because it's a very specific temperature requirement. And so it's more expensive to do that for them. It's more expensive for us. Storage is more expensive. And it's ultimately higher risk. If a truck breaks down while it's going from, say, Colorado to Los Angeles or something, or anywhere in the country, point A to B, the truck breaks down and it's bottles of hot sauce. Like I said, it's not going to melt. If all that ice cream gets too warm, it's total product loss. So with the distribution specifically, that's something that we are trying to get better at, but it has been a lot of hard lessons learned.
I mean, that's really interesting. I was just talking to someone yesterday who's in the early stages of the cereal game,
Sure.
and distribution becomes a real question because cereal is so light and
Mhm.
it takes up so much space, you
Yeah.
know. And then I was talking to a manufacturer of a tea beverage, and his issue was, man, it's heavy. My product is heavy. So all the different, challenges and distribution. Just for our audience, and I always encourage our audience to go out and order the product, for the shows we have directly, or from a store. What do you think, truly makes the product different?
Think there's a level of quality that we've been able to reach just through the process that goes into creating a recipe. So like I'll use our vanilla for instance. That took 5 years to get done. So from the first time I made it in my mom's kitchen to when it hit shelves in our first round of stores, that was a 5 year process. So between sourcing, finding the right ingredients, I can't even remember how many different like vanilla samples I got sent, determining whether to use an extract or vanilla beans or a flavoring. There's quality is everything in that, and vanilla is a very good example as well because it's a simple recipe. I think one of the problems with a lot of the major brands is that they're not really focused on the quality of the product of the ice cream itself. They're just throwing a bunch of shit in there. So if I were to make, a cookie dough peanut butter brownie one, like realistically, what you're eating is a lot of inclusions and mix-ins, and those can be okay. And the ice cream itself can be okay, and the whole thing turns out kind of good. But I've always felt that that was kind of a cop out. Not to say that we're not going to do more mix and flavors, but the base recipe has to be really finely tuned. So our vanilla, there's like three ingredients: milk, cream, sugar, vanilla. So it's simple in the recipe, which makes it really complicated. Too much or too little, and it's not going to be what it should be, in my opinion, or it's not going to taste the way that it could if it were its best. So, between sourcing ingredients, that takes a while, finding the right folks. Then once you have everything sourced, it's like, how many times am I going to figure out just how much is too much or too little of that extract or that vanilla bean to put in there? That takes a while. Down to the science of how many times is this going to spin in a machine for how many minutes so that it's not too aerated or too like not aerated enough before it gets put in that pint. So that's like the pipeline for decision making is a long one. Um, I think that level of quality that we're going for is, I can't think of too many brands that are matching us in that. Like we're pushing a raspberry cheesecake flavor out in the next few months. That's one that I've been working on. I probably did my first draft batch in maybe 2021. So it's like hundreds of recipes before I even share it with like a buyer. And by that time, you know, there's a lot that goes into it. But ultimately, too, I think we're a little bit different. We're an American style ice cream, which is essentially a lack of eggs. So a custard has eggs in it. Try and explain that we're not a custard by getting into the weeds. It's easier to say it's American style. We did that for a couple of reasons. And by definition, we're super premium as well. So that's a 14% butterfat. That was another kind of consideration. You could go with like I think 8 to 10% is still technically ice cream. You could go as high as 18% on the butterfat. So we found a 14% mix that worked for us. And feel like if it's too fatty, it almost leaves like a chalky kind of film in your mouth and not fatty enough. At a certain point, it's not really even ice cream then.
Is that the difference then between gelato and ice cream? Is that gelato has eggs in it, or is it custard that has eggs in it?
Custard has eggs. Ice cream has eggs too sometimes. Yeah. Gelato, the main difference is that it's a lower fat and more sugar.
Got it. Got it. Got it. I want to ask you, like, what goes into when you're selecting a distributor? Like, do you look for philosophical match? Do you look for a geographical coverage? Do you look for the relationship? Is it all of the above?
I mean, to date, we've just kind of had to take what we can get. We've been very fortunate to develop a really strong partnership with UNFI. They go to a lot of the stores that we're servicing on the natural specialty side of things, some of the higher end conventional stores. So that was done basically out of necessity. And I've been very diligent in making sure that we have a strong relationship with them because they're a big company. Not everything goes perfect for them. We're one of probably thousands of brands that they work with. And so, what folks say about like being cautious with the big distributors, like, yeah, sometimes mistakes get made, but they're, making sure that you have partnerships in place with people within the organization that can help address those. And Unify has been a really good partner for us in that way. Now that we're expanding a bit more and have like our infrastructure, manufacturing, just kind of the different lanes that we can ship to more established, we are being a little bit more selective, I would say, or just, there's only so many people that do frozen distribution. So we're just trying to find the good partner fits where pricing, everything makes sense. And, are we going to be a good fit for them as well? Are they going to customers who um, can buy, $8 pints of ice cream, or are they servicing accounts where, it's better to sell like $4 gallon of ice cream? So there's just a lot that goes into that.
It is. I love that you brought that up because I was thinking about buying ice cream in the '90s, versus buying ice cream today. And the ice creams that were popular in the 90s, a lot of them are not popular anymore. Or if they are, they're more like they're price popular. They're the people that are buying gallons and they're not adventurous with their taste buds or like interested in new flavors or different, substance profiles,
Yeah.
um, are buying those, old brands. But there's a lot more brands in the market, and I've noticed that most of them are pints. There's not a lot of brands that are selling gallons anymore, other than the older players.
Yeah, I think that we're going to see probably a shift in some of the ice cream brands to start selling in like the quarts. I think that's going to become a more popular vehicle for brands to do. We've already seen it with some of the larger premium brands in the pint space who are starting to do that. I think part of it too is just like the unit economics don't make sense when it's like the reason a pint is expensive is because of how quality the ingredients are, and like it doesn't scale down in price just to put it in a larger quantity like that. Like, so it's really, I'm sure, figuring out how to make it so that you're not selling like a $19 quart of ice cream. But as brands scale and get to better positions, they'll probably start to do that more. The other thing too with like ice cream innovation, it's just kind of a flat like cycle in my opinion too. But we'll see what people can do as far as larger container sizes and things like that.
It's interesting too. I know we talked about this one time before, but the how do you figure in kind of the American palate and what larger audiences are going to buy when you're like when you were doing raspberry cheesecake? Like, how do you think about the larger market with that?
It's nuanced.
That's a great answer. Best short answer ever. It's nuanced, Duncan. It's nuanced.
I think people, when I was coming up and trying to get this thing from being just like, yeah, I'm trying to start this ice cream company, like in conversations with folks to like, oh yeah, I have this ice cream company. When, and still people ask me like when I talk about the company today, whether it's in the capacity of a sales meeting or just someone finding out that I make ice cream for a living, they always ask what's your favorite flavor. And when I tell them, vanilla, they're like, oh, that's so boring. But everyone kind of says that vanilla is our top seller. Vanilla is the top seller at pretty much every grocery store. Um, like any grocery buyer that I talk to, vanilla is their number one seller. I think that's to go back to what we were talking about as far as recipe development. I almost look at vanilla ice cream as kind of being like it should be able to stand on its own, but it should be able to get added to other things as well. If you're going to make a sundae, does it blend well with like fudge sauce, and can it had other toppings mixed in before you stop tasting the ice cream? And so as far as the palette generally, I think there's been for the premium space, a lot of focus has gone into like specific kind of differentiated recipes. So things that maybe weren't super popular in ice cream, a few years ago, like matcha and something else. Like that's taking up more shelf space today because people are looking to be a little more to explore a little bit more with what it is that they're getting out of their ice creams. But it's all over the map.
Well, I think there's something to be said. Yes, it may be vanilla, and maybe there's a perception that vanilla is boring. But
Mhm.
to produce something that is so pervasive in a way that stands out above the rest is actually a huge accomplishment and a huge challenge. I mean, and without all the bullshit in it, maybe with four ingredients, I mean, that's elegance. I mean, and I have such a huge admiration for your work, and I can't even imagine the chief uh, cream officer,
Dream executive officer.
chief cream executive officer, and also I believe the chief salesperson. So,
Yeah, she's everything for now.
the work that has gone into this. I mean, if you had to count, I don't think you can count, right? How many iterations do you have on the recipe?
I don't know. But fortunately, I mean, like the chocolate ice cream took me about 6 years because I was mostly just waiting for my mom to give it the okay. Like I would mail her back ice cream from Colorado to Chicago and be like, okay, how about this one? She's always like, no, it needs a little more work. And then one day I just like brought some home because I was here for my sister's baby shower and I was like, I made this for the baby shower. What do you think? She's like, oh, you finally listened. Like, this is perfect. Jesus. Okay, well, happy we got this one. But yeah, I mean, it just there's a lot, and it's not like I'm doing it 7 days a week the whole time. Like maybe it's a couple times in a month. Maybe I go 2 months without trying it. There's only so much you can do. And in addition to running literally every other function of the business, sometimes that stuff takes a back seat. But we've been very fortunate to gain the distribution we have just with our pints. And I'm pretty excited about this year because we're actually coming out with something that I think is going to be the biggest thing to happen to ice cream since Dippin' Dots, probably.
Well, I'm making an unconditional offer for you to come back on the podcast when you're ready to talk about that.
Sure,
So,
yeah. Yeah, it's launching in some select partnerships in April, but I've been working on this ordeal since September of 2023.
well, let me ask you this. You have a very engaged following on social media, on Instagram, even. I mean, there's
Mhm.
a lot of reactions, there's a lot of engagement. What do you attribute that to?
What can I say? I'm just like a really cool dude. No, I think with social media and like I'm coming at this as like a 30-year-old dude who like is has the more of a mindset of like a 60-year-old boomer dude about social media. So I'm far from an expert, but I think what people are kind of sick of is like brands being kind of inauthentic, and it's like social media is supposed to be kind of like fun, I guess. And so with a lot of brands, it might come across that it's very just like, hey, we're trying to sell you something. We want your data and like engage with this so we can sell you things better. And like, fortunately for them, we don't have the kind of money to implement technology that can do that. So, in the meantime, I think what people appreciate is that there's some authenticity to it. Like until this month, I was running the social media myself. We just got an intern for that, and she's great. And you're gonna see a lot more, even better content coming. But I think that people can appreciate like the authenticity that comes from like, hey, this is my brand, this is my journey, this is, you're seeing it firsthand. There's not like much of a filter on it. I tried not to share all the BS that goes on behind the scenes because I don't think people want to hear me complain about shit. But other than that, I think that people can just identify or appreciate what it takes to bring this thing to life, and they like being able to connect with that because in the same way that when I demo, if I do a demo and I'm sampling at a grocery store, I sell a lot of ice cream. If we're paying someone to do it, they can sell a lot too, but usually not as much as me. And really, what that comes down to is people like supporting founders, people like meeting the folks who are behind the products that they consume. And that's kind of what they get when they're seeing me on social media or when they're seeing me at a demo. They had it happen so many times where people say, "Oh, this is like I'm meeting Ben and Jerry." I'm like, kind of, but my name is Sam, so it's all good.
Well, that's funny. Who would play you in a movie, man?
Me in a movie? Mm, I don't know.
I want to propose a young Joaquin Phoenix.
That'd be cool.
There's a certain detached intensity, I think.
I'll take it.
What do you do I mean, I'm sure this is a very busy, a very strenuous life, bringing this vision to the world. What do you do to take care of yourself?
I don't know. I mean, lately, I've been working 7 days a week for the last few years. Not constantly, but that's like more often than not kind of the routine. So, um, it's nice to hang out with friends and have things to do there. Um, Exercising, like boxing for fun rather than for like competition has also been a really nice change. That's like gone into effect in the last few years. It's a lot more fun when you're not like getting punched in the nose. Um, so yeah, trying to do those things and be intentional about who I'm spending my time with and what we're doing.
That's awesome. What do you think of the Netflix exhibition boxing in November with Jake Paul and Mike Tyson?
Oh, I mean, I'm happy it didn't go worse. I thought that would should have been illegal. I had a lot of people like trying to ask me, who do you think's gonna win? I'm like, who's the oldest player in the NBA? And they're like, oh, I think LeBron. I'm like, and he's what, 40? Like, okay, now add 20 years and you're getting punched in the head. Does that sound like a good proposition for an athlete? So yeah, I don't know. I didn't like it. The fight that was on before, the women's fight, Katie Taylor and Amanda Serrano,
Oh,
that was
man.
a great fight. Women's boxing is actually really good right now because there's a lot of competitive matches, so they're kind of carrying the sport in my opinion. But even the fight that was on before that was entertaining too. So I tuned into that and I was going to turn it off. My mom was like, "Well, I want to see Mike Tyson fight." I was like, "Okay, we will watch this. Fine." So yeah, I don't know. I had mixed feelings. Hopefully, it brings more eyes to the sport, and that means more people do it, and maybe the sport can be it's a love-hate relationship with it when you're a fan. Everything that comes on that's worth watching is like, pay-per-view $80, and it's like to be a fan of boxing, if I watch 10 fights a year, I'm putting in 800 bucks. Like I could be buying tickets to go to games if I was a fan of anything else.
Yeah, that's totally true. What about people that are wanting to start, their own brand today that are listening, and hearing you and all the success you've had? What would you say to them?
Don't. Just kidding. Uh, be ready to hear no a lot. Nothing goes smoothly. What the hardest thing I had to learn was to go double, double half on everything. So double the amount of time you think a goal is going to take to reach, double the amount of money you think you're going to have to spend to get there, and then cut your expectation of what you can receive in half. And that's probably best case scenario for you. Um, I was looking recently at some business plans from when I was maybe 25, like first trying to raise money for this company. And I thought we were going to be selling 32 pints of ice cream per store per week just because, we're in the store, it's going to move. It's like, that's not how things work. So there's a lot that I've only been able to get so far because I was very fortunate to have an open mind to connecting with people in the CPG world who I identified as having more experience than me and reaching out to them. And for the most part, folks are really, really nice because they know how tough of an industry this can be. And so as long as you're able to kind of persevere and just find a way to keep going, like you're going to hear no more than you hear yes, even like today, that's still the case and probably always going to be that way. But if you know what you're getting into, and there's unfortunately no way to actually know what you're getting into until you go in with both feet forward. So just be ready to fail and find ways to turn that into success.
I love that. I love that. Just go into it knowing what to expect. I think that's great advice. And also the thing, I think I'm trying to think who said it. Someone said it recently that every time you see on LinkedIn, that a founder has gotten into, a new store, the other side of that is that someone got thrown out.
Yeah.
And so it's a mixed experience and mixed emotions and people have dreams and the mission is real and the struggle is real and I'm thankful that you're doing what you're doing and can't wait to collaborate more with you and excited for raspberry cheesecake and the big announcement in April and any parting words.
Yeah, I would say too something that you just made me think of as far as like my success and people in frozen, it's like very brutally true of like there's a finite amount of shelf space in a grocery store. In some cases, maybe they can add a shipper, but with ice cream or frozen, they're not going to build you a new freezer. So, yeah, yours like the wins will come at the expense of others, but don't be closed-minded to who you think your competitors are. I've gotten a lot of benefits from reaching out to other folks of small or companies who are only slightly larger than me. And it has been very beneficial to develop friendships or relationships with them. So when you're in that position, like you're not trying to outsell the other emerging brand, like because you guys could probably connect and problem solve a lot better than you would by working against one another. You're facing the same challenges, you're facing the same, unique set of circumstances that apply to what your product is. That's especially true with ice cream. There's only so many places you can produce it. There's only so many companies that are delivering it. So it's been a huge benefit to me to try to see what I can learn from other folks, see how we can help them. And ultimately, like, it's kind of small-minded to think that it's like it's either me or this other little guy when ultimately we're both competing against multinational, multi-billion dollar corporations that own 60% of the shelf space. Why shouldn't we team up and try to take some of that rather than take it from each other? So, yeah, I just think don't be too competitive in that you're burning bridges, I guess. It's a simplified way to put it.
Thank you for saying that. I mean, I think I just posted that on LinkedIn again today. That small is beautiful. What we lack with resources and budgets, and all the other things, we can make up for with innovation and agility. I have a very close family member who works at a humongous brand, and both her husband and her lamented that they cannot innovate. They just cannot. They do not know how to innovate. So the only way they can do that is to go buy other brands. And I mean, I think that the only real way to get through that is for us to be more organized as smaller organizations, and say, hey, we can pool our resources to do things. And, a win for one of us is a win for all of us, as opposed to, the scarcity mindset. So I really appreciate
Absolutely. Yeah, and if there's any of those multinational, multi-billion dollar companies listening to this and you want to buy a great ice cream brand, I won't say no.
Love it, love it. I forgot to ask you about the band. Are you still playing? Is it the Pigeon Boys?
Yeah, we haven't played together for a while. It was actually so it was my friends and I started a band when we were in like fifth grade. We played some talent shows and it was really bad. It was like people were clapping when we were done, not because of us, but because it was over. So my friend in college one day, we were home for like winter break and he was like, we got to get the band back together. So like, no, we don't. We fucking sucked. And so we just started playing around and it actually sounded okay. So we decided to pursue it. And there's a series of like, that was my junior year of college. So we played some small kind of backyard show and then played at a venue in Chicago. And then a couple months later, we were able to book a show at the House of Blues and sold a few hundred tickets. And as far as like my musical accomplishments, I'd say that that's definitely kind of the mountain or the top of that mountain.
Big and a big, right? Love it. Love it. Well, thank you so much, Sam. This has been a wonderful journey, and hearing about you and the delicious story of Rosebud Ice Cream. And I think we're all in agreement that this is the beginning of something beautiful. Thank you to our listeners for listening. If you want to experience the joy of America's best ice cream, you only got one thing to do: rosebudicecream.com. Find your nearest pint and treat yourself. Big shout out to Firebelly for sponsoring this. If you're a mission-driven food or beverage brand that wants to be on this podcast, reach out to us. Thanks for tuning in. Don't forget to subscribe, rate, and review the show. We've been rated a top 20 food and beverage show. So until next time, thank you again, Sam. Thank you for listening, and we'll see you on the next one.
Thanks.
Thanks for listening to the Firebelly Social Show. We'll see you again next time, and be sure to click subscribe to get future episodes.